In the world of startups, there's a saying that you should fake it till you make it. But what happens when faking it crosses into fraud? When ambition and hype spiral into deception that shakes even the biggest banks? This is the story of Charlie Javice, the young founder once hailed as a visionary for helping students access financial aid, who is now facing the possibility of spending more than a decade in prison for pulling off one of the boldest deceptions in recent corporate history. Charlie Javice was born in 1993, raised in a comfortable family in Westchester County, New York. She was bright, ambitious, and fascinated by the world of finance and technology. By her early 20s, she was studying at Wharton, the elite business school of the University of Pennsylvania. Like many ambitious students at Wharton, she dreamed of becoming the next great entrepreneur, building a company that would change the world and make her rich in the process. In 2016, she spotted an opportunity in one of the most frustrating parts of American student life: the college financial aid process. The FAFSA form, required to apply for government aid, was notoriously complicated and intimidating. Javice believed she could fix it. That same year, she launched Frank, a startup promising to make applying for financial aid simple, quick, and transparent. The company's pitch was powerful. It would empower students, particularly from low-income backgrounds, to get the money they needed for college without drowning in paperwork. Investors were impressed, the media was intrigued, and Frank was soon making headlines as the TurboTax for student loans. In 2019, Forbes named Charlie Javice to its prestigious 30 Under 30 list, celebrating her as one of the brightest young entrepreneurs in America. For a while, everything seemed perfect, but behind the slick branding and glowing profiles, Frank was struggling with a problem that haunts many startups: growth. The company's user numbers, while real, weren't skyrocketing in the way investors wanted. By 2020, Frank claimed to have around 300,000 registered users, which was respectable, but nowhere near the millions that would impress a major buyer. And Charlie Javice had her eyes on something much bigger than running a scrappy startup. She wanted an exit. She wanted to sell. Enter JPMorgan Chase, America's largest bank. In 2021, JPMorgan was looking for ways to reach young customers, particularly students who might one day become lifelong clients. Frank seemed like the perfect fit, a youthful, socially conscious fintech with a direct connection to the student market. Negotiations began, and this was Javice's golden moment, but there was a catch. JPMorgan wasn't just buying Frank's technology, it was buying its customer base. The more users Frank had, the more valuable it was. And this was the pressure point where Charlie Javice made the choice that would destroy her career. According to prosecutors, when JPMorgan asked for detailed information about Frank's users, Javice panicked. She allegedly knew that the real number, about 300,000, wouldn't justify the kind of acquisition price she was hoping for. So instead of being honest, she created a fiction. Working with Frank's chief growth officer, Olivier Amar, she allegedly hired a data scientist to generate a fake list of over 4 million supposed customers. These weren't real students. They were synthetic data points, made up by algorithms or purchased from marketing firms, with names, emails, and addresses that looked authentic but represented no one. The deception worked. Convinced that Frank had over 4 million active users, JPMorgan agreed to acquire the company for a staggering $175 million. Javice herself received a payout in the tens of millions, and she joined JPMorgan as a managing director, hailed as an innovator who had built something of real value. For a brief moment, Charlie Javice had everything she had dreamed of: money, status, recognition, but the illusion wouldn't last. The unraveling began soon after the acquisition. JPMorgan's marketing team sent emails to what they believed were Frank's millions of users, offering them new services and banking opportunities. The response rate was shockingly low. Many emails bounced back as undeliverable. Others went to people who had no idea what Frank even was. The bank quickly realized something was deeply wrong. They dug into the data, and the truth emerged. The customer base was nowhere near what had been promised. In December 2022, JPMorgan sued Charlie Javice, accusing her of fraud. That lawsuit triggered a federal investigation, and soon the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission were on the case. By April 2023, Javice was arrested and charged with bank fraud, wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. Each charge carried serious prison time, and the narrative that once painted her as a promising young entrepreneur shifted overnight to that of a con artist who had fooled one of the world's most powerful banks. The trial that followed in Manhattan Federal Court in 2025 was a media spectacle. Prosecutors laid out their evidence, emails, contracts, witness testimony, and the damning revelation of the fake data lists. They argued that Javice deliberately inflated Frank's user base to trick JPMorgan into overpaying, pocketing millions for herself in the process. Defense lawyers countered by claiming JPMorgan had engaged in sloppy due diligence, that the bank knew or should have known the risks, and that Javice was being scapegoated for their own failures. But the jury wasn't convinced. After a 5-week trial, Charlie Javice and Olivier Amar were found guilty on all counts. The verdict was a crushing blow for someone who had once been celebrated as the future of fintech. In September 2025, prosecutors recommended a sentence of 12 years in federal prison, along with restitution and fines. Sentencing is set to follow soon, but whatever the final decision, her career in technology and finance is effectively over. The story of Charlie Javice raises troubling questions about the culture of startups and the financial industry. How could a major institution like JPMorgan, with endless resources and teams of analysts, be duped by falsified data? How could a founder, once seen as a champion for students, justify fabricating millions of customers just to close a deal? And what does this say about the "fake it till you make it" mantra that Silicon Valley so often celebrates? For many, the Frank scandal is a cautionary tale. It shows how the pressure to grow at all costs can lead even promising entrepreneurs to cut corners, bend the truth, and eventually cross into criminal fraud. It also highlights the risks for investors and institutions that chase flashy metrics without asking the hard questions. At its core, this isn't just the downfall of one person. It's a reflection of a system that rewards appearances, hype, and inflated numbers more than substance and integrity. Today, Charlie Javice is not remembered as the young visionary who wanted to fix financial aid for students. Instead, she's remembered as the founder who lied, faked millions of customers, and ended up facing years behind bars. From Forbes 30 Under 30 to federal prison, her story is one of ambition turned toxic, of success built on illusion, and of how quickly a shining career can collapse when truth catches up with lies. And for every young entrepreneur watching this unfold, there's a lesson here. In the world of business, faking it may get you headlines, it may even get you millions, but sooner or later, the truth comes out. And when it does, the fall is far harder than the climb.